Alrighty, here we go. Hello, and welcome to class 3 of the AutoMechanics class. Sorry about everything that's happened so far. I haven't gotten the time to upload the video of last class, because things have been crazy over the week, but I am going to be uploading it tonight, along with this class that we're recording today. Now, has anybody been studying their material? With a show of hands, come on. Alright, well I can see that although some of you are studying, the rest of you aren't. And you need to study this because soon we will be having a quiz on this. So this isn't your average elective. Alright, here we go. Today we're going to be talking about the basic parts of a piston and the piston rings. We have a little video here that we're going to be playing twice today that will help you understand the parts of a piston. And we're also going to be having a video to help elaborate on last week's how to change a tire. So as you can see here, the piston, this is the piston, and these gold things right here would be the rings. They go in, then comes this connecting rod, which is linked up with a piston rod. No, I mean a piston pin, often called a wrist pin. This right here would happen to be the connecting rod bearing, which is the same thing. It's connected in the same way that a crankcase is connected to a block. Crankshaft. Now, when you think of piston, what does it resemble? I honestly think it resembles an upside-down soup can that you would get at the grocery store. You see, as you can see, it even has those little lines as the can is also not smooth. Now what this does is that even the... I'm going to be reading here, so I would like you all to read with me here. Yeah, the piston. When the fuel ignites, the explosive force pushes a piston downward with bullet-like power. Each piston attaches to the crankshaft with a connecting rod, commonly called a conrod. A connecting rod attaches to the crankshaft in the same way a crankshaft connects to an engine block, with high-polished, smooth bearings. These bearings are called connecting rod bearings, conrod bearings, or simply rod bearings. A piston attaches to the conrod with something called a piston pin, which is this little thing right here, which could also be called a wrist pin. The alignment, now honestly this image is a little bit incorrect because a piston is slightly offset from the crankshaft, so it has a way to direct the actual force. Because if the piston were to be hitting it like this, something would break. Interestingly, this hole right here where you put the wrist pin causes the piston to expand unevenly and change its form due to heat. Consequently, the piston is not exactly built in the form of a circle. It's an oval. So that way, once the engine gets the proper running temperature, which is around 195 to 220 degrees Fahrenheit, it actually reforms itself into a circle. This is actually one of the reasons why an engine must reach proper running temperature before it can operate at its peak. Alrighty, now we're going to be going over the parts of the piston, okay? So as we go through this, once again, I will take questions. I see you there, and I will take a question at the end, okay? Alrighty, here we go. Alrighty, number one is the piston. What?
Piston.
Good. Now, as I said in the beginning, the piston is actually what transfers, is what actually gets pushed down to transfer the motion from the actual explosion to the wheel, to the crankshaft. Alrighty, number two, connecting rod. What?
Connecting rod.
Good. The connecting rod is what connects to the bottom of a piston, and the bottom of the con rod is connected to the crankshaft. Number three, crankshaft. What?
Crankshaft.
Good. Alrighty, the crankshaft, as stated in last week's lesson, I believe, the crankshaft is actually what changes the force, the up and down reciprocating motion of the piston to a rotary motion to the wheels. Number four, connecting rod bearing. What?
Connecting rod bearing.
Now the connecting rod bearings are actually what connect the con rod to the crankshaft. It's connected in the same way a crankshaft will be connected to the engine block and oil pan. Dad. Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Everything okay? There we go. There, praise the Lord.
Amen.
Alrighty, number five, bearing cap. What?
Bearing cap.
Good. Okay, now this bearing cap is actually the bottom piece, could be also the bottom piece of the con rod, as shown in the little image inside your little pamphlet. Number six, main bearing. What?
Main bearing.
Good. As also stated in last class, the main bearing is what actually helps the crankshaft move smoothly, yet also holding it in place. Number seven. Once again, connecting rod bearing. What?
Connecting rod bearing.
Good. Now, in the connecting rods, there are two bearings, a set of two. One will be on the bottom, and the other will be on the top, to help keep that motion going. Alrighty. Number eight, piston pin. What?
Piston pin.
Good. The piston pin is actually what secures the piston to the actual connecting rod. And it also is called a wrist pin, because the motion that it can provide resembles that of a wrist. Alrighty, we're going to be talking about the piston rings. The rings are actually like steel bracelets for the actual piston, and they will fit inside of these little grooves right here. Each piston usually has a set of 3 or 4 individual rings. Although the pistons slide up and down the cylinder, they actually never really touch the cylinder walls. The rings are actually what touch the wall, because if the pistons were to touch the cylinder walls, it would seriously scratch or damage either the engine cylinder or the actual piston itself. And repairs like that can be very expensive. Now these upper rings right here are called compression rings. The compression rings are actually what touch the cylinder walls to create a seal powerful enough to contain the explosive force from the combustion chamber as the power stroke engages in the engine. The lower rings are actually called oil rings. Now this is to provide an oil seal to prevent oil from splashing or leaking into the combustion chamber from below. And it also helps kind of direct all that oil back into the crankcase or oil pan. looks like this, it's because it acts somewhat kind of like a wipe, like a wiping agent, because excessive oil can get in the cylinder walls. So the oil rings also wipe down the oil and put it back into the crankcase. Now, we're going to be going over the parts of the actual piston ring. You guys ready?
Yes.
Good. Number 1, compression rings. What?
Compression rings.
What?
Compression rings.
Good. As I said, the compression rings are actually what touch the cylinder walls and help create the seal strong enough to contain that explosive force. Number 2, oil ring. What?
Oil ring.
Good. The oil ring, just to tell you again, the oil ring is actually what creates the oil seal and wipes excess oil off of the engine cylinder walls. Number 3, rings. What?
Rings.
Good. As I told you, the rings are actually what actually go into the cylinder grooves in the image. Number 4. Yeah, number 4. Grooves. What?
Grooves.
Now the grooves are those little black lines that you see inside of the piston. Those little grooves are actually where the rings go and stay. And also, little fun fact about the rings. The reason they're not a complete circle, it's because as the engine runs, the piston rings expand, helping create that seal. If it were a full circle, like if this were also to be connected, the piston ring would expand and snap. Which is why they're built like that. So they're built to bend and expand to the heat. We're going to be also going over this video again, now that I told you about the piston and the actual rings, so you can understand it better. So as you can see, the piston takes 3 or 4 actual rings inside there. The connecting rod connects below the piston with the actual piston pin. This right here would actually connect to the crankshaft. And it's also what provides a smooth enough surface to keep the piston moving.
I'm just picking it apart.
Now it's being disassembled. All right. Now, before we continue on to the next video, I'll be happy to take this portion of the actual class to take your questions and hopefully answer them as well as possible. So I understand you had a question?
Oh no, I was just gonna ask, I didn't bring a pencil and if I could use colored pencil.
Oh, that's cool, that's fine. You're going to be actually keeping those.
Oh, I have an extra pencil.
If oil gets past the oil ring and it ignites with the gasoline, could that possibly blow up your engine?
Actually, yes. That's actually the main cause why the engine can explode. And once that explodes, the entire car is done. Yes? I see just.
Are we gonna ever be able to make like a model of the engine systems and everything like that, or no?
We may be able to, but then again, as I stated in the orientation, we won't be actually getting our hands dirty. Yes, your size? I see it.
Is there any way to prevent the oil from leaking out more?
Well, usually once something happens like that, the check engine lights and warning lights actually turn on, informing you that there could potentially be something wrong. with your actual car. Yes?
My little brother has a piston. I could bring that in next class to show everyone.
That would actually help very much. Thank you. Yes?
What happens if a piston or a piston chamber stops working in a car?
Well, usually, if the piston breaks, once again, the check engine light will go on. And probably if the piston actually stops running, the engine would stall. Meaning that it would just shut off right then and there. Yeah?
Well, I was wondering, let's say a piston breaks and there's other pistons running, can the other pistons recover that one or not? The one that broke?
I'm honestly not sure because I've never seen anything like that happen. But possibly. But it wouldn't be recommended. Yeah?
What are the rings made out of? Because if they're meant to keep the crankshaft from being scratched, what's any different from the
Cylinder.
rings? Huh?
The cylinder, you mean?
Yeah. What's any difference from getting the cylinder scratched up if the rings are going to scratch it up anyway?
Well, the rings could possibly be like stainless steel, aluminum.
Yep.
And actually, back in the 60s, they were actually cast iron. Yes?
What would happen if the connecting rod in the piston broke?
Then the entire engine would stop working. Yes?
As you said before, if just one piston broke, wouldn't the fuels leak out into the entire combustion chamber?
Actually, yes. That's actually a very good point, but I don't believe it would be able to ignite because the actual air and fuel mixture hasn't been compressed. It would still be dangerous, but it wouldn't ignite right then and there. Yeah?
So in the cylinder, anything below the oil ring is filled with oil, keeping it flowing to keep it flowing smoothly.
Well, the engine isn't entirely like drowned in oil. The oil usually sits below the crankshaft. And the reason why they have that oil ring there is in case, because as the engine's moving and the engine's vibrating, that oil doesn't like to stay in place. It'll splash and jump. That's why that oil ring is there. Any other questions? Come on, don't be shy. Yes?
What are those red rings that seal the pin?
I believe they're like fasteners, like to actually help hold the actual wrist pin in place. Yes?
I have a model engine at home, I can bring that one to like one of the automobile classes.
Thank you. That also would be very helpful to this class. Yes?
I forgot what I was going to say.
Don't worry. Alrighty, if that's all the questions, we could continue on and watch this next video. Alrighty. We have a video here to help show how to change a tire, because even though I explained how to do it, it would be much easier to watch an example. Alright.
Lift up this cover to access the spare tire. We'll loosen it, put the hole down, and give it a couple good raps. Make sure it's full of air. Worst thing you want to do is put on a flat spare. Then you'll remove the tire. Careful, this can be quite heavy. Well, we have our spare tire on our jack. We've set our reflective warning signal out. We've also chopped the wheel on the opposite side of the flat tire, so we're ready to start changing it. The first thing we'll do is jack the vehicle up. You'll have to loosen the jack a little bit in order to get the handle up. This particular model has the lug bridge built right in. Before we jack though, we'd want to loosen the lug nuts, because once it's jacked up, it's going to be very difficult to get those lug nuts off. This particular model has a hubcap, which will just loosen those up. It doesn't take much because they're made out of plastic. Set the hubcap out of the way. Now you have access to the lug nut. Loosen the lug nuts. Position yourself firmly, pressing counterclockwise, loosen the lug nuts. Not too loose, just enough to crack them. If it's a little stubborn, position yourself over, using your knee or your foot, you can gain leverage. Now we're ready to jack it up. This is a common scissors jack. The screw moves in and out, allowing the mechanism to move up and down and lift your car. So as you turn it to the right, it'll go up. As you loosen it, the jack will collapse, allowing the car to come down. Now we'll position the jack. You want to be sure to get the jack on a good part of the frame. Your owner's manual is a good place to find where to properly jack the vehicle. You can raise it up by hand until it contacts the frame and is in good position. We'll use the jack handle to raise the vehicle. Insert the end of the jack handle into the jack. Using it as leverage, it'll help make the car go up easier. Remember to turn it clockwise to go up and counterclockwise to go down. Carefully jack the car up. Never stick your hands or your legs under the vehicle, as the car can fall and cause damage. Jacking can take a while, so be patient and cautious as you jack. Okay, now that the car is jacked up, now we'll take the lug nuts loose. Remember, we already pre-loosened them when the car was on the ground, making it easy. You notice they'll come right off now. Trying to do that while the car was jacked up would be very difficult. Remember to keep your lug nuts in close hand. You don't want them rolling away in the grass because they'll be hard to find, and that's what holds your tire on. Again, we're turning them counterclockwise to get them loose, or to the left. We'll remove the flat tire, set it over here out of the way. Now if there was heavy traffic area, you wouldn't want to leave it in the street. You might want to put it to the rear of the car. Grab the spare tire, put it in position. You're going to center the spare tire on the wheel studs. That's where the lug nuts go. So go ahead and do that. Lining it up. You see it lines up pretty easy. Then install your lug nuts. Again, clockwise is tight, counterclockwise is loose. So we'll tighten them up by hand as far as they'll go. Once the tire is centered, lug nuts are hand tight, take the lug wrench. Again, turning it clockwise, tighten the lugs till they're firm. Not too tight, because remember, your car's up on a jack. We wouldn't want it falling off with too much leverage or force. Insert the jack handle back into the jack. Turning it counterclockwise again, we're going to lower the vehicle. Again, this will take some time, but going down is a lot easier than going up. If it seems to be going down easy, you can just do it like this by doing it straight instead of having it angled. But if it's too tough, you can angle it and get the leverage that you'll need to lower the jack, or to raise the jack. Turn the jack lower enough, you can do it by hand now that it doesn't have contact with the frame. And we can remove it. Now that the tire's on the ground, we'll go ahead and give them that final tight. So we're going to start down here, then move to the top one, then back down, over, and back again. A little start pattern, making sure we have equal torque on the wheel studs. Okay. Well, we have our spare tire on, it's aired up, we're ready to go. A couple things to remember though is you want to put everything back in the trunk. You don't want to exceed highway speed on this temporary spare. Make sure you get the big tire fixed, and it'll get you back on the road as soon as possible. I'm Alan Stanley for Howdini.com.
Alan Stanley.
Alright, now that we watched that video, does anybody have any more questions they would like to ask? Yes?
What are the spare tires underneath the car, like us?
Well, that was just one example of where a spare tire could be. A spare tire could either be like under the car or in the trunk.
Check the manual.
Check the owner's manual where it could possibly be.
Well,
Yes?
Once you use a spare tire, do you have to get rid of it?
No. it's reusable, but it's often that you always, whenever you're getting your tires inflated, like over at a gas station or something, it's always wise to check your spare tire's pressure. Yes?
If you have like a tire under your car, how do you get that out?
Usually, there should be like an access point. Once again, you'd have to check your owner's manual, and it usually has instructions on how to access the spare tire. Yes?
What if you lost your owner's manual?
You can you can usually download it in the form of a PDF online, or you can go on a website and buy them, but they're not cheap. Yes?
My Fiat has the tire underneath, but it actually has a knot inside of the trunk, and with a jack, you kind of like spin it or twist it around, and then it lowers the tire underneath, and that's how you take it out, and then you have to pick it up again.
Yes?
Oh my gosh. How long can a spare tire run on the road?
Well, I'm honestly not sure. I guess it would depend on the actual tire itself, depending whether it's like in good condition or not. But it's usually not wise to keep it on there for too long. Yes?
I noticed that his original tire and their spare tire were two different sizes. But how does that impact the car?
Usually, I do not believe that provides too much of an impact to actually affect the car. But most of the time, the spare tire is usually the same width as your car's normal tire.
What happens if it wasn't really a spare tire? It was just an extra tire of the same kind.
That would actually be perfect.
What if you have a semi and the front of one of the front tires is off, and you only have a car tire, a type of car tire you have to spare, only a spare car tire.
I'm sorry, what?
What if you have a semi in the front of your tire pops, and you only have your only spare tire in the car tire? What would you do?
Call a tow truck.
Right.
No, sir.
Are all spare tires the same?
No, because not all tires are actually the same. Usually, the spare tire has the best tire for your car. Like that one. Usually not exactly the same, but it's almost the exact same as your normal tire.
What would the safe speed to drive at for a spare tire?
Not higher than highway speeds. Like in I-4, you can usually do 65 to 70 miles. It wouldn't be wise to exceed that. Yes?
What happens if you have two pop tires?
Call a tow truck. Yes?
The other thing, for females, sorry to be a little sexist here, but
Uh-oh.
to keep, in your trunk, that inflatable,
Spare tire?
no, the one that's the can that you put in to fix it flat,
Oh, the
that's it.
pump.
No, it's called fix it flat.
Oh, the sealant.
Yeah, but then you can tell the negative side of that too.
Yeah. Yes?
Is there any chance that you see, like, you're on the highway, exit right next to you, there's the AutoMechanics shop, couldn't you just drive it flat for a little bit?
No, that's a bad idea.
Just a
Because it would
not
rip
even
the tire.
fast.
It wouldn't be wise because it would rip the tire.
What about the rim?
And after the tire gets ripped, it would come off of the actual rim and scratch the rim. Yes?
One time we were driving on a flat tire and then pieces of the tire started coming off. And then we were driving. And then we were like driving on parts of the rim.
That is a bad idea. That is an awful idea. As soon as that happens,
We pulled over and my mom and my dad worked together to fix it.
exactly. Whenever that happens, as soon as you hear that pop from your tire or feel it's flat, pull over as safely as possible. Yes?
One, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago, this is pretty recent. There is something wrong with my mom's, or both her front tires. They weren't popped, but they were flat.
Oh,
And, there was, I forgot what it was called, but it's the, what's it called, that makes, it gives it traction.
oh,
This
the suspension.
yes, it was loose.
Oh,
it was loose, and the car was wobbly.
Oh
It
no.
was really wobbly, and we were just driving down the road. And then not only that, but the tires were flat. It was my mom's on her van, her front right and her back left.
Oh.
And then there was something else that was connected, and I think one of the bolts came off too.
Oh,
It was
no.
so wobbly.
Oh
So then
no.
we took it to like Tire Kingdom, and they fixed it all up, and I'm like, yes.
How the heck did your car still stay in one piece after that?
I don't know. It's really a miracle.
As
Like,
soon as that is actually a God-given miracle, because as soon as that happens, pull over and call a tow truck.
well, we were literally like not even 2 minutes from the thing. We were probably like 30 seconds away because we were at my uncle's house. We literally just had to drive across the street.
Still,
It was just bad.
bad idea.
But my mom drove on the highway with it. For
Oh.
3 hours, we drove to Tampa.
Like that?
Yes.
What?
And then, but it got
Okay, that is a
worse.
miracle.
It got worse the entire time we were driving.
More than a miracle,
It was.
Well, you got lucky.
Guys,
We didn't even know. They told us after we fixed it.
yes?
How bad is it if you haven't had an oil change in, say, 3 years?
That is.
Hey, Doug, what about 5 years?
How is your car? How is your engine still running?
well,
You might
maybe
have
you
changed
just didn't
last
use the
year, I'm
car.
saying, but
Then
if it happens again,
the engine is done for.
Okay.
What about
Get rid of that, and
We-
you have
we've
to
only
replace
had-
the entire engine.
well, we've only gone like 1.5 years without an oil change. This is like the farthest we've ever gone.
That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
You're
We
honestly
couldn't
gonna
change
want.
it. Well, we just changed it last year, so we're good.
No,
It's-
it's not last year.
It's always
Yeah,
good
you
to
know.
change. It's always good to change your oil every 3 to 6 months.
Yeah.
And-
My dad's.
Not 3 to 6 years.
And it's usually once you have low mileage, it's best that you go with pure real oil. But then as your mileage as you put more miles on the car, it's better to go synthetic.
For example, what's the mileage you're looking at?
Well, usually when it goes I'd say from 17 to 100, from 70,000 to 100,000 miles, go pure oil. But then beyond that, go synthetic. This is gonna be the last question, okay?
Why?
Because the low mileage, since it's newer, it can actually handle the crudeness of pure oil. But then as the car gets more miles, the engine actually gets oil and the synthetic oil could actually be a tad bit thicker.
Is it more expensive?
Yes.
Yes,
What's the difference between the oils?
the pure oil is thinner. Alrighty.
The
I hate to
synthetic, you don't need to change as often, is that true?
Yes, that's actually very true. And I'm sorry to cut this short. I would be happy to answer your questions after class, but I have to cut this short. Good job on all your questions, by the way. Remember to study your lessons. Remember, study.
Where are you punching the wall?
Alrighty. And I'm gonna be ending this with a quote once again. It is during our darkest moments that we must focus to see the light. Aristotle said this, and it can actually be related to a lot of instances with cars, be it when the engine dies, or you have to fix a tire, or as simple as a body scratch. Thank you all for coming, and this has been an excellent class. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. If you guys have any more questions about anything like the actual test or anything, or you want me to send you the link to the video, feel free to email me here at johncarlo2001@me.com.
Now, Marcus.
We got like 20 minutes.
Okay.